Welcome to the Joy Work Show, the podcast that goes beyond the surface of business, right to the heart, to explore the real joy and the stories behind success. Not just the moments of celebration, but the challenges that pave the way for them. Hiya, I'm Diane, and on this podcast, we know that the greatest joy comes right after the greatest challenge. Today, we are part of a story of the messy, exhilarating, and sometimes terrifying leap from corporate life into entrepreneurship. And joining me today is someone who knows that journey inside out, the brilliant Natalie Potts. After years in the corporate world, Natalie made a bold decision to step away and redefine success on her terms. This isn't a story that is linear or generic or anything that you would necessarily expect. We're talking about the mental hurdles of leaving behind an old identity, the importance of self-care, the importance of self-awareness, and how to push past fear to build a business with not only success, however that looks for you, but with real impact. If you've ever felt stuck in a career that doesn't light you up, or wondered what it really takes to start over, or maybe you have that great corporate career but you just think there's something else for you out there, then this is the episode for you. As always, it's so much better when we hear it direct from our wonderful guests. So let's go. Hi, Natalie, and welcome to the Joy Work Show. I am so delighted to have you with me today. I have watched you from afar for quite a time, so I feel like I know quite a lot about you already, how clear and direct your social media accounts are. But for everybody else, please tell us who you are, what you do, and how you got here.
Morning. Thank you, first of all, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So welcome.
And it's a Saturday, which was
And it's a Saturday.
We love what we do. So, gosh, about me. So I help people to cut through the noise, stand out, build authority, and get really known for what they do by nailing their messaging and getting really clear on that. So that's in a nutshell. That's the boring bit. Should I go back on my journey?
Go back. We like stories here. We like stories.
Story. So my journey is very much, I was that drama kid, not very confident in school, then suddenly broke into confidence through finding drama. Thought I'd go and do the whole drama degree thing and then go into acting. Started working for a retail corporate and earning like what at the time was good money. So I was like, I quite enjoy this. I was very good at it. I always say that, like, we know that it's never really linear, but my success journey was very linear. I was like, I did well, worked the hours and got to the next level. So I loved it. And like I said, I was good at it. So I stayed there for 19 years of one company.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and it's like a kind of a niche thing now, like, I might say that. 'Cause, well, and then I guess it was probably 2015. I hit a block of like, what's life about? What do I want? What's meaning? And I met someone who was a coach who started asking me all these questions about values. And I was like, I actually met them on Tinder. This is always the funny part. And then we just...
Funny.
Somebody and their friends, and he was a PT but coach side and massively into personal development, and I was really curious about personal development. Again, it always stood me out against my peers, or when we came to performance reviews and things, I just loved that side of things. And so he asked me all these questions, and then it just led me into coaching more and exploring it. And I then came across like the Coaching Academy and things like that, and signed up to train with them over 4 or 5 years in corporate coaching and also personal performance, and loved it, like really did. Then thought about, I'm going to start my own business. So started my own business. I was at corporate, and then COVID kind of hit. I was doing bits, and then I was like yourself with the podcast, I had my coach go on at me for about 9 months about, like, just start the podcast. And then COVID hit, and I was like, there's no way, because we were working beyond 70 hours a week. It was just it was just 6 o'clock. I just remember actually every hour just felt like work from COVID onwards in retail. It was just mad. And I thought, what can I do? What's in my control to just crack on with and keep that almost like that deluded belief that I've got a business? So I just started the podcast, and I've pretty much done an episode a week since, which again, I'm all about consistency. But business then got to a point with COVID, I again got another opportunity to progress to the next level and went for it, got it. And then I had a 6-month sign off after that where we had to deliver results and get things, and then you get signed off by directors, and I didn't get signed off. And it was kind of very in the whole, almost I could talk about it here and you can hear like it was like a no-brainer, she'll get it, oh, you'll be fine, why are you worrying? And I was nervous. I didn't particularly get on with the two female directors at the time, and it was a very male-dominated environment. Yeah, I think that was kind of, at the time, it was put me, really, I say put me, it didn't put me, like, I went into depression then, really. Probably exhaustion, but all of those things together. I previously had some burnout a few years before with different side of things, but I got very much into and obsessed with the fitness world and doing a transformation and everything. But I think all that just coming together was my moment of, this isn't life. I'm really unhappy and I was never the mode of ever wanting to take my life. And I've been a support at Shout Crisis before, which is like Samaritans, because it's always been something that mental health really something I'm passionate about. But and also that helped with the conversations I used to have with my team at work around mental health and things. So I'm always wanting to add things to my kind of skill set. And I knew I wasn't in that place, but it was enough for me to say, this isn't living life. And if I continue this road for the next 30, 40 years for work, which would absolutely be what I have to do. My dad had done a very similar journey, and his was different. This isn't happiness, and this isn't, as we say, like the word joy. It wasn't filling me with anything of achievement or satisfaction. And it became what is now, and my dad said at the time, this will be your gift. I was off for 4 months and I left the business like that, which I'd always been like, oh, you never leave the corporate like that. Shamed upon, but I did. And I was like, actually, I don't care. I got to that desperate point of, I have to prioritize my health. I have to prioritize me. And you're here once and you get so wrapped up in that corporate bubble of thinking like everybody knows what you do. Everybody knows this big company and it must be amazing. And everybody looks like you're so successful, but inside you're not. And I couldn't hold down a relationship. My work-life cycle was just, I get up, I go to the gym, I go to work, I go home late, I have a good, little drink, and then I do the same repeat. And I was like, again, I don't see friends. I've got the money, but I never spend it. And it was all those things. And I thought the risk was simply not taking the risk and staying stuck in that world. So many people do get caught up in it still. It's why when it comes to working with, although I leaned into the niche of messaging, fundamentally it's sales strategy, marketing, client experience. And, it's the fundamentals of the whole business stuff. But you've got to really look at, most people won't leave. And that's why I work with people generally. I'm like, you've got to leave and then I'll work for you, because at the time I thought that was just almost something like, I just have to do this. But for many people, that is not an easy decision. And there are so many things around it. So I'm more empathetic to that now than I probably was at the time as well. And just like, we'll just quit. But because people can't. I say can't. I do believe we all have choices beyond what we feel.
But it's not, lots of people don't think that they have, and they've not got the foresight and the awareness to be able to make and see that as a choice. And it's just so interesting. And I often wonder if it is a female trait, that it almost needs to get to breaking point for us to see, and that's almost where our strength comes from. Because so often when I ask people about their stories and when they have come from the corporate world, as I was, and the companies that I worked for they were probably the most entrepreneurial space within the private sector. So they weren't so corporate as in lots of red tape, HR departments, that type of corporate, but it was the private sector. So it was still very different and coming from that. But it took me to have 2 children to think that I could leave. But when I look back and with hindsight, there was lots of different moments where I was looking for something else. I would start a blog, I would look into interests, I would start other things. But because I worked 80-hour weeks, and it was part of my identity. It was who I was. And even right up till the week, so I'd had 2 maternity leaves back to back, one through COVID and the end of COVID, and then fell pregnant quite quickly. I went back to work for 6 months pregnant. They were delighted. And then and it took right to the end of that maternity leave to actually make the full decision. And ultimately it was just, the decision was made. And like you said, something close a second ago about you leaving, I knew it was time to leave, and it was scarier to go back than it was to leap and try something myself. But ultimately it was because I couldn't see it working with the 2 children. I just couldn't see logistically for what we wanted to give ourselves and them as a family and how we wanted our family unit to work. I just couldn't see how it was going to work. So it's really interesting hearing your story, that it took us a different type of breaking point.
Sure.
And it took something else because I don't have regrets, but there's something in me that says, if I had just done this 10 years ago, if I had just, now ultimately, I couldn't have done it 10 years ago because there wasn't that thing telling me to, and I believe in the right timings for everything.
Sure.
But it's that thing of, if I had, and I was younger, and I still,
Yeah.
before I had children, and I had that time, and of, you kind of that hindsight thing. But it's so interesting hearing a different type of breaking point. So was it literally as clear as day for you during that time away? Even though it must have been really difficult to make it from a point of being signed off of work, for you to get to that point when you talk about your career.
My dad's always one of, like, I always say, like, the strongest mentor in my life and anchor and everything, and inspiration, just, from that side of things of business. He's always done very well in business, but worked hard for it. And that was another thing of a belief in money I've had to work for, is like, you don't have to work hard. Like, it's not always as flat as work hard, you earn more money.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe, though, if you work hard, that good things come 100%. But there was a massive identity piece, which you just coined a moment ago, around, like I said, that little cycle of like home, work, gym, home, work, gym. And I was just caught up in, who is Natalie? Like, what am I about? And, like, will they be coming to my funeral and saying things like she did like she was amazing, or will there be no one because I just did a great PowerPoint type of thing? There's nothing. The realities of, bloody hell, what is life about,
Yeah.
And so the identity piece, I went straight into private therapy instantly, because we just, like, I went home and stayed at my parents, and there was lots of pressure around, obviously I have a mortgage, and I've been obviously paying all those things myself, very financially independent. I always have, always will be, even though I'm engaged now, I will be. But I remember saying to my dad once about, like, oh, I just need a bit more time on stuff with work. Like, and I'm honest, right? In some ways, I pushed the protocols. Like, I knew I'd managed people for years on stuff like this, and suddenly I'm in it with, occupational health and stuff. And they essentially told the business to leave off me and stuff like that, because it was, making me anxious. And I don't tend to be an anxious person. All those things that you experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to private therapy, and then I was like, that was good, but I needed more depth than that. And there was a lot. I had a severe eating disorder as well with the fitness stuff. So it was, do I go to like the Priory and all those things? We're looking at that. But I actually went into grief recovery with, I guess for me, work is always, I love work.
Yeah, me too.
You always will. And I needed some form of that. And it was a space of just needing a bit of time to work out, like, well, I've done 19 years for them now. What do I really need to do in my life in this space of time to get back on track? I've got that inner strength still. I always think I've got 10% more in the tank. It's probably the fitness side of me. Like, you got more, keep going.
Yeah.
But I still had a bit of that, it was that, like you said, it was that underneath was like, I need to bounce back here. There will be resilience. And I went to, joined with a coach, and I joined a mastermind, and I started surrounding myself with people who were where I wanted to be. That was the thing. I had no idea what a journey looked like. I just trusted something deep down in my gut. And I do that really well. I always talk about superpowers. I've got a couple that I'm really confident naturally. I just embrace that now. And, just trusting my gut and believing in myself is just something that I seem to have in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And I just made a decision going to the mastermind, which was a great decision at the time. And I met somebody there who did grief covering. Ironically, she was going to come on my podcast, and we're sitting having a chat about it. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, screw the podcast. I was like, I need this. This is what I need. So I did 12 weeks with her, Gulam Fernandez, and she's amazing. She's ironically my client now, but she's just gave me that space, unpacked the backpack, created a new toolbox. And the biggest thing that came from that was, as you said, the identity. I just didn't realize how wrapped up that was, and that you would just become attached to things, and it's a safety net. And that's the irony. People say, well, I just need to get a secure job and I just need money. And I'm like, they could make you gone tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
I saw that world. I was in it.
Yeah.
Get around letter, you'd be gone. My boss was, when I was signed off. And that's not secure. That's not stability. So again, we get wrapped up in these beliefs that just aren't true, or social norms that aren't true. And the journey of just discovering what you want and standing for that. Most people probably don't know what they really want.
No. Well, that's it. They think they know, and it's not until, and even like I did when I launched the business, which was September 2023, I really sat down and did a lot of that work early. But then it's that with the business background, you were lucky to have a little bit of that awareness and foresight. But my goodness, has that changed in just 18, 19 months, whatever it is? Because you're so wrapped up in that previous identity, like you said, that I had to completely change who I thought I was. And for a while, I was running as far away as I could from that person. And then it was probably about 6 months in, I was like, no, there's elements of that person that are still there. There's still that, you know, and it can exist alongside each other. That the Diane that loved her work was a complete workaholic, and almost that was her life. She can still exist, but she now knows that there's better balances that she can have in her life. She now knows it's okay to say, I really enjoy my work, but I also really enjoy spending time with my family. And I really enjoy looking into, like, I've got much better at being like, what does my self-care look like? And no, it doesn't just look like having a hot shower in the morning to look after myself while somebody looks after my kids for half an hour. It means that she actually says, no, today, this is what I need. You know, and some days it is, I just want half an hour in the morning to do a workout. I do them at home. I do them because that's what works for my life right now. And that's my time. You give me that time, I can do everything else. And all those people can exist alongside each other. I don't need to fit into the box of that thing. And it was really interesting when you said to me that it was a male dominated industry, but you didn't get on with the female bosses. And I was in a very male dominated industry. In fact, I didn't have a female boss properly. I had some peers, but I didn't have somebody that was coming in until I'd been in my career for probably about 15 years, something like that. And I was told this woman was coming in. I was told what she was going to do. And I was so excited. I was like so excited because everyone expected me to get a bit like defensive and like protective and start being like, you know, like claws out. But I was like, no, I have been waiting for somebody to watch somebody do where I would like to be, where I would like to go, what I would like to do. And she came in and I was so disappointed because she was just one of the men wearing a skirt. And then I started to look at myself at that point, and that was probably about 4 or 5 years before I left. And I started to look at myself at that point and I thought, have I been doing that? Have I been molding myself into what I thought I needed to be and not who I truly wanted to be or who I truly was?
I felt just with that, it absolutely resonates in very similar in that again, it's identity. You become something that, you know, you have to be this way and all that jazz, or you go against, I used to go against the grain on stuff and they didn't like it and they'd say they want that. And I remember being in like, you know, boardroom style meetings, and I once said to one of the store managers that I was like, you're the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and my boss used to say he liked it because I cut through the noise in there. Like he goes, you can cut through instantly like a knife. Then those people didn't like that level of challenge, but it was like, but it's just let's have a conversation around it. And
it's not personal, but this is what you could work on because you're the bottleneck. You're the one. Yeah.
It's the piece for me with building what you said there was the values weren't aligned. They were saying it's a business, and I just saw, because we'd had all the conversations before, like, do you want director? I was like, no way, crikey, blow me. And then you start to think about it because you do, you're like, oh, I could do that. And you see people do anything, oh, I'm better than them.
Yeah.
And all of that. But the values weren't aligned. And the higher you went up, the more the political game kicked in. And I was rubbish at that game because I just didn't want it. Because again, it was against the core values for me internally. Probably there was a massive disconnect just happening. You know, then you get the colleague side, the man, and I was just like, this is just not how you do business. Or I want to conduct myself in business probably as well, and standing for that. So I think as well, I have to look back and think it was also incredible for me. I loved it. And I learned so much. And as much as we both say in hindsight, we would have left earlier, like we are where we are because of that journey and experience, and the lens we see through is built, you know, come from that journey piece as well. So I am grateful for that. And I stand my ground on things, and building the business, it just gives me so much more credibility, authority. And, you know, like I've just adapted the skills. It's all business and it's not complicated. It's just that has really helped me see a skill that many people probably, and I'm always working on it myself, but need to work on, which is people and business is about people. And this, like coming on with Ascension, in some ways we're kind of strangers for the first time meeting on here.
Completely.
Having that genuine connection. What's the instant connection? How do you build a relationship? How do you listen and engage in somebody and take a great conversation, opposed to go and be like, okay, cool, well, this is my agenda. And the people essence of building a business that I've learned from corporate, I would never, ever take that away, because I don't think
No.
entrepreneurs world, they focus on that. They say the nice stuff of it, but it's all about, it's not all about, they want the money as a bit. And it's like,
Yeah.
that comes from doing your stuff, consistency. Like
Mhm.
sometimes going and doing the hard work, doing the bottom stuff and working your way up, like that is what happens in things. So yeah, I do look at that journey and think it's been incredible as well. And I've met some amazing people.
Yeah, that's it. And it's when you look at any successful business, even businesses that you necessarily think weren't built to become massive companies, it is still all about people. It's like I always say, every single business is a recruitment business, because once you get to that point that you're bringing people in, yeah, no. And if we ever get to the point that we have a business with a team, we
Yeah,
know how difficult it's going to get.
I challenge myself on it, and I'm like, what do I want? What do I not? Like, how much does it restrict me? And is it as glamorous? And I think it's an interesting one that I don't have the answer to right now. Still,
No,
I'm very
you
open
can
to it.
only,
But it's not glamorous. It's not as easy. And when I look back when I worked in a lot of London environments, and they can be challenging in a different way. And that was a problem. When you get in London, you're kind of stuck. And
Mhm.
most of my job, my boss would come in and be like, "Oh, how are you with it? Where's this figure?" And I'd be like, "You're joking, aren't you?" So I've just run around. I've just been on a call for dealing with all of the employee relationship stuff for about an hour and a half. It takes me an hour to get to my office because everybody needs you when you walk in.
Yeah.
Yes and no to that. I think, like, again, you work out what is success to you. Like, you've got the Joy Work show. I have Success on Your Own Times podcast. I want to know what, like, again, it's very much storytelling. What does success really mean to you? And we break it down. How do you measure happiness? How do you measure joy? How do you really, like you said, it's not, people use the word balance. And that's always been a bit of a word that I'm like, oh, but
Yeah,
again,
like,
why? Because it's right. There's no, people think it's this or that, and it's the balance part is that it's like the seasons in business. Oh, I had to work late. Yeah, tough. Like, yeah, you may have
yeah,
had
it is what it is.
now, but then the next 2 months it's very different flow for you. That is just, it's a seasonal thing. It's life. It's business. But it's like you say. I do think you have to have a grounding in. I'm going to put my own oxygen mask on before anything, whether it's a kid's fiance, husband, wife, whatever, because that you showing up at your best is going to be better for others anyway.
Well, that's it. And quite often the people say to me, or how's your work-life balance, or how do you do it with the kids? And I'm like, no, there's work-life balance doesn't exist for me. Some days I pick the business and some days I pick the kids, and some days I'm awesome at looking after one of those things and other days I'm not.
Oh,
My
yeah.
week's very much sliced up depending on the childcare that I have. My babies are still young, so generally I work Monday to Wednesday, and then Thursday, Fridays I have the children. But if they're having lunch, if I've got an email to reply to, I'll reply to an email, or if I've got a message or things like that. But I've learned that I have to focus on the one thing. Like, on the days where they're at childcare, I focus on that. I don't do anything else for the children. I don't think about, almost don't think about them, and just focus on that. And likewise on the days that they're here, because the days that I get angry and short and lacking in patience are the days when I'm trying to reply to an email whilst they're climbing up my leg and they're doing it. And you can't do that all. And then people say, but you come across as a feminist, you come across as a strong woman, and you come across, and I'm like, yeah, I can be that person, but these are my responsibilities just now. And actually, I don't believe anybody can have it all
No, I don't.
at the one time. We can have elements of it and we can
Yeah.
make choices. And
Yeah.
that's why I kind of had an issue with the word kind of freedom within business.
That's
And I
been
don't have a freedom business, but I have a business that gives me freedom of choice,
right. Yeah.
and I can choose what my day looks like, what my life looks like, and I can build it around what, like you say, what success looks like, what I truly want, and I can make those decisions based on
So
that.
interesting. I did a lot of work around, again, this is the depth of which we think, right? But I did a lot of work around the word freedom. Years ago, I spoke at an event, and I was in a mastermind at the time, spoke at this amazing event called Be Inspired, and it was all around freedom again, financial
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah.
And I remember going to my mindset coach in the mastermind at the time because I was really struggling. I was like, how do I get this across? And why am I struggling with creating it? And again, like that, I always draw on that experience of speaking and training to speak, because it reminded me of corporate for so many, like a process of loving the process of something. And I feel sometimes in business, it's so rush, outcome. And it's like, the input of that process, I just loved it. Why am I finding this hard? What does this mean? Searching with people. And I was like, what does financial freedom to you mean? What does this mean? And when you like the word freedom is broken down to so many things, again, people just, I guess, and I was there, the reality is you think, oh, I'll just do it and leave and have freedom and flexibility. But freedom comes in different ways. And the freedom, as you said, for me becomes more like you said, it's the ability, like I have choice beyond anyway. This is one thing we said about, like, she said, could you go to the gym right now? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, so is that not freedom right now in its simplest form? And I was like,
yeah.
So she goes, but you're working all the time, almost like you've got to achieve freedom. Or when you get here to your business, it brings more freedom. She goes, but you have it right now. You have the ability, like after this podcast, I'll go for a run and I'll crack on. And we do have it. But it's like we said, measuring, defining without being too business like in this. But really, what do these things mean to you? And what then do they look like in how that's shaping your life? Or, I am a believer in, one of my mentors is out in Canada, Giovanni, very different from me, who can be like quite logical, and he talks about magic and unicorns and different stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, very successful and great events. But he gets me thinking differently about things in that way. And again, it's that expansion of how we do things. It doesn't have to be so logical, but spending the time to figure out what does that mean for you right now in life and business and everything. And so it works. But I think, we can there's a lot of labels banded about like freedom, isn't it? And it's, again, it's
It's because it's the rise in the online space of like the laptop lifestyle, and it's just, it's sold. It's sold as, yes, sometimes I do work from my laptop a lot, and it might be that I'm working from a coffee shop or something like that, but it's not a laptop lifestyle. For a start, you can't really see your screen when you try and work on a beach. So it's not really, that. So they're just pretending.
Yeah, it's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's not, but I think it's just the idea of that, and it's taken away the idea that it doesn't take hard work, I think, to get these. But ultimately, you can build a business that works
Around
for
you.
you and whatever you want your life to look like. And like you say, it's those success factors. And when you said about working with somebody that's all magic and unicorns, like, again, when I launched my business, I was like telling people, I'm not that woo, I'm not really into that. And I'm like, my goodness, I am. My mum sends me my star sign if she thinks it sounds like me. And, I've got a crystal sitting on my desk, but I, like you, I need it to be surrounded by logic and processes and what it means to me. I'm not going to do something that I have to believe in, but I like to be in a space where people challenge
100%.
my thinking of it. And I believe in visualization but the visualization only works by taking action. So it's not that,
100%.
those things, but I've had to really lean into that, because I'm like, well, how do I dream big? If I don't, how do I dare to go further and challenge myself if I don't lean into parts of that? It doesn't mean that if I go and rub that crystal for 5 times that I'm going to have the money in my bank that I want by tomorrow morning, but it might just give me that moment to visualize and think, and right, okay, that's where I want to go now. How do I get there? And when we're talking about teams, somebody made me do a visualization that I've actually since done with my membership. And when I did it, I didn't think I wanted a team, but in this visualization, I had a team around me because I just allowed myself to kind of go there. As I say, I have no idea when that will happen or what that looks like, but I suddenly realized that, I quite like being surrounded by people, and to maybe do what I want to do, I'll need that support system. So it's just really, really interesting when you say that you're now working with somebody that kind of takes.
He talks about, like the destiny and things like that, and that to me is just something I'm curious on. It's like you said, like if you don't, I really realise, again, I think something that was I just had it though in some ways. I just knew I needed community around me. When I left corporate, I used to lead and manage over 500 people plus at one time, so it was big teams, which I always think I say quite like when I didn't know.
People are like, what? You did what?
I know, and I hear some people like, I had a 12 in my team, and I'm like, blimey.
Yeah.
But that's not comparison, but I didn't know any different. I'd just grown up in that world. So therefore, like that amount of people was just like, I just did it.
Yeah.
I guess to create the destiny part of then led me to, like, you have to be around people that think bigger than you as well. People where you want to be, where you are and where you were. And there's a balance in its own way, again, finding out where you sit with that of, you have to be really careful. You don't get caught up in the fact that actually you're living the dream of what you want. Like, I am living the dream I wanted when I was in corporate, right? I'm living that now. But in my head, I'm on to the next thing. You have to be really present. There's a real thin line there between gratitude, enjoying what you have right now. Everybody knows life's short, but they don't act like that behaviorally.
No,
Have that
no.
aligned, but we know it. But also, like you say, dreaming big because you don't know what you don't know. And, like, that's why I love traveling with work, because it's like that reminder of, come on, you can do this, you can go for it. The world is your oyster. And there is so much more opportunity. Again, people just say, there's not enough money, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. But there is the lack of something and you'll be in that world. There is abundance, is not always my language to use, but there is an abundance of opportunities out
Yeah.
there for people if you want it. And the reality is people are too afraid. It's the fears of everything that gets in their way, but just go for it, because you can do so much more. You can help so much more people. You can live a great life, but that comes down to, again, like, what do you want? And then going for it, taking, embracing the failure. You're going to fail at stuff all the time.
All the time.
You're going to be told a few truths that hurt. Like, again, tough.
Yeah.
Get on with it. Like, you learn that. And
But it's almost that's where the growth comes from, whether you have the self-awareness to be that. I mean, I don't like saying the word critical, but you do need to have your own critique that kind of tells you, like you said, you're really good at following your gut. And I believe that I'm really good at following my gut, and I know when it's the right thing. And it's almost that even when I've made decisions of who to work with and things like that, it always gets to the point of, I can't stop thinking about this. This is how it will help me. And, I'll journal a lot around it, and I'll write my lists and do all the things, because I want to commit my money and my time to something that I'm not just going to do a course because everybody else is doing it. And I have to think, right, what's it going to give me? And can I implement it as soon as it's finished? If I can't implement it as soon as it's finished, it's a future thing, because I need to be able to implement and run with it. And it's just so interesting. But you have to have that kind of inner critique to say that this is. So even if it's not somebody else pointing at you and saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? You almost have that internal dialogue telling you, not in a lack of self-belief way, because you need to be, and that's where the strength comes from, which I think if you continue, it's that muscle, like you say, that you're so into health and looking after yourself, and you've done body transformations and things, but you can do mind transformations, and but the body listens to you. Use bad language to yourself, the body listens and remember. So it's almost like training that muscle itself to be able to say, that wasn't very good, Diane, what can you do next to fix it? And, oh, that was great, well done, do more of that. It's having that dialogue with yourself, as well as making sure, like you say, you're in the rooms with people who are going to point that out to you.
I wish more people could divorce emotion from things.
Yeah.
Just, logic's not always brilliant, but just see things for what they are a bit. And, most of the stuff isn't personal. It's not against you. It's, things happen for you, not to you. And again, that's where I've been around great people that, say a little something like that. And I'm like, God, that's stuck for me for life. But things make the difference. And I'm a huge believer in investing in yourself, that I almost think it's, very hypocritical to say, like, invest in me if you're not investing in other people yourself to do the work.
Completely.
I get there's financial constraints of people, but then if that's a money one, we'll invest your time and learn. And there's so much out there. We are not devoid of information right now.
No.
Like you said, it's what we pay for is, here's the recipe, I'll help you do it. Like, the action implementation, that's the biggest part. And that's, again, a very corporate mindset of, right, let's stop shouting about it, just go and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, go and do it.
It's that thing as well, if people say, but I don't know who to invest in, it's like, well, you have to get really, where are you now?
Yeah.
What do you want to achieve? And if you don't know your values and what you stand for and what you want, then work with somebody on that.
Yeah.
And then you'll move on to the next part. You need to think about what it is you actually want to achieve, and not just what you think other people are achieving or the other thing that you want to do. And like you say, there is information out there. Everybody has freebies that you can go and get. And let's face it, the freebie world's also getting better and better, because it has to. So people can go and get the information, soak it up, and then that's when they're so much clearer to make the decision, because they're already learning the information. But it's that you then pay somebody to get there faster, clearer, with their better knowledge. And it's just like, you have to keep investing in yourself. If you think about yourself as like a factory doesn't just keep the same machines. It has to service them. It has to buy the new ones. It has to update the software. You have to think of yourself, because ultimately, when we're solopreneur, entrepreneurials like we are, and we are ourselves, say we'd not got a team yet, or maybe don't want one, we have to see ourselves as that machine that's keeping our business going. And how are we best servicing it, feeding it, maintaining it, and like you said, putting the oxygen mask on first. And it's taken me until the last kind of 6-7 months to really say, this is what I need as Diane, from personal, from financial, from mindset, from business, to on a daily basis, to then show up as that. And I think as well, when you've been on that hard work hamster wheel, you need to kind of step off it and think like, no, but this is what I actually need. If something happens with the children and I don't get to work out at 6, I'll get them to nursery and then I'll just start work half an hour later. But that workout is that important.
Yeah.
That I have to do it. The work will be so much better than it would if I was like, oh my God, I need to be at my desk for 9. I need to be. Well, I don't need to be, because nobody's waiting for me.
Because again, it comes down to choices and decisions. And I know that I can go and have the most rubbish workout, but the decisions I'll probably make are probably not to hit McDonald's on the way home. Luckily, it's not on the route. But you know, going home and it's that I'll have 1 G&T, not 10 G&Ts or whatever. It'd be far too much for me. But, you know, it's the choices that then we make in the decisions. And that's the difference of how we shape our lives with things. I also believe that, quite bluntly, a bit like the want, you've got to have a really strong why. And I think my friend said it, and I think she got annihilated for it. But there's depth to it and truth, that she was like, like, my purpose is beyond my kids. And people didn't like it. But in the same, I don't have kids yet, but that I'm very ambitious, and Tom's very aware, like, I'm driven, I'm focused, and that's why we bounce well off one another and have a great relationship, because we have our own identity piece and our own things going on, our own friends, and then we come together and it's great as well. But we're our own people in life as well, and we're doing our own things. And if he wants to go away with the boys, he goes away, and if I want to go traveling, I'll go traveling, like, with work and stuff. So then we come together and we aligned on that. But our why is so strong, and why I'm doing what I do is, and it's not complicated. Like, I just generally want to, you know, like, feel good, help people, do stuff that lights me up, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'll give everything to that, and everything just falls around that. But when people are like, oh, I'm just not motivated, it's different, it's not motivation.
No.
It's the commitment, it's
discipline and consistency.
Yeah. And when that why is so strong, I remember even being in a mastermind a few years ago, and it really hit me hard. And I did say something back to them, but they were saying about, oh, I might just go and get a job at Costa, this is really hard. And I thought, like, one, we've all got people that work in sectors like that. I said, and I worked in retail for years. I said, we need to be careful that we're not, like, demeaning that position. I said, I know you don't mean it in that way, but just be careful, like, oh, it's a job that I'll go to if this doesn't work out, type of thing. Because for somebody, that is meaning in their life. That is the best job they want. I used to work with people like, they love what they did. And I was like, every day. They're like, I know, I love it. And I was like, okay, cool. But we have to have that really deep why. And I think when we have that, there's certain things when I dream of, like, I want to be able to take my family away for experiences, or I want to be able to do this with Tom, and I want to go and do this with work. Like, that's what gets me out of bed every morning. That's tough. And when you really have that, and you know where you're heading, and that really strong vision, values, like you say, that's your driver. And that doesn't just have to be centered in the ideal of, oh, but it's my kids, and it's my family, it's my...
No, see, and I completely align with that. And I did a podcast episode the other week where I was like, yes, my children are my why. They are the life that I look at building. Of course, when I visualize it, it's about them, and it's about taking them away every half term. And it's about traveling the world and seeing things with them through my eyes and their eyes. But it also goes deeper, because yes, my children are my why, but why do I do what I do now? I don't have this type of, like, I don't have the Joy Work Show for my children. I don't work with the type of clients I work with for my children. I don't talk about the things and have the messaging that I do for my children. That's about me and my business. That's about my beliefs, my values, my ambition. That's about the impact I want to have. And yes, my impact will be, like, connected to my children when we talk about legacy and things like that. But that's not for them. That's for me. So your why is, like you said, it's how deep, it's how many levels. And yes, there is, when I find it really difficult, I have a picture of my children and I'm like, show up, Diane, for goodness sake, look at them, show up. But it's also for me because I know what I'm trying to do and I know where I'm trying to go. And the days when I wake up and go, I don't have a clue what I'm doing or where I'm trying to go, because let's face it, it happens to everybody. It depends on what it is, on how deep that why is. It might be a day where I'm like, you need to show up for your clients today. That's all you need to do today. You need to show up for your clients. Let's figure it out. Or there'll be a day that will be a bit bigger and it will be about the kids. But yes, fundamentally they are, because they're here and they're so important. And I now have a responsibility for them and I want to create a life. But it goes deeper. And it's that identity piece again. And I think for the first few months of launching the business, it was like, I do it for my kids doing. And I was like, no, I do it for me too.
Yeah.
You know, I matter. You know, I'm not. And so often it's this narrative of mum puts herself at the bottom of the pile and everything else. And let's face it, when it comes to logistics, I am.
Of course.
That's what happens, you know, and I can't decide to go to, there's lots of things I want to do in my business and right now I can't, but that's not, it's just because of the age and stage of my children at this point.
Yeah,
that will change. You know, they'll start doing things and I'll be like, oh, I can say yes to these things. I can say yes to these opportunities. But like somebody said to me as well, when I launched the business, like my youngest was only 1 year, just turning 1. And they're like, oh, it's a really difficult time to launch a business. And I was like, I have children now. Tell me a time that isn't difficult, that isn't going to be. So what, I wait till they go to school, or I could actually have
always is
the foundations of a business by the time they go to school, so I can show up when I want to show up. I can get them from the school gates if I so choose to. I can turn up for the assemblies and the things that I want to turn up for. So there's no perfect time when it comes. There's no perfect time for launching a business, kids or no kids. But
you're thinking the wrong things then as well. It's a bit, I remember, I think Jimmy Carr saying it on a Stephen Bartlett episode about like life isn't fair. Like again, you're searching for something that's just, it isn't that linear. I think just sometimes you have to prioritize yourself in that. I think it's selfish not to, for showing up for people and to be at your best. But it's not even just, I hate going on at hubs, I don't just want to be a mum hat, because the just for me always adds that bit of, well, it's, you know, demeaning again. But I want to be all different hats and different things at different times. And I won't get all of those right. And I'll do one more than the other and think, oh, I should have been there and here. Fundamentally, I always say to people, like, oh, well, I have kids and I have this, and oh, I don't have any money, or I don't have this. You made those choices at some point, and at the time you made those choices, they were the right thing to do. We're dealing with the consequences now of those, and that's a different conversation. And therefore, it's how you navigate through those consequences in the choices that you're now making. I put like a post on this morning, again, like I'll go for a run today, and it's like, right, I've had a good, strong, like, energy fuel drink thing that will get me what I need to then do that. It's like decisions I'm making now are paving the way for the future me. Like I'll go out, I want to keep fit and I want to get in that nice wedding dress and stuff. Like I make those decisions now, and sticking by those. Really, in essence, the hardest part of it is us, and we've got to do that growth work. And I've realised this year in business actually that, again, like most people know, longer in your business, the problems just become bigger problems, and the problems longer to fix, or things become longer to do, which is how it rolls. But there's the business growth all the time, and that's always going to be a bit like this, or some months you do that, or you want to do that, that's not going to happen. But the personal growth, I've really reflected on the last probably 3 or 4 years, that I get these moments, probably 3 or 4 a year, and I can coin back to them as now. I can remember them clear as day as well, that I go on a lot of personal growth, and I know when I'm in them as well.
Yeah.
I'm in one now where I'm very delivery mode of the business, which is cool. I knew I'd be in that at December. So again, it's like, embrace it. I don't just deal with it. But it's making it the longer days and the season that's long for me, which is okay. But my personal growth, because I'm in that, is just flying. Like, because I'm physically with so many clients the whole time, I'm learning so much. When I remember a few years ago when I was in corporate, it was just the end of 2021. I made 30 people, it was part of the process, but we had 30 people being made redundant because I was closing a location. Really tough. And I was pretty much doing it on my own. And I was like, I did RTT at the time, rapid transformational therapy.
Okay.
Again, it worked quite well, but I just knew I needed that. I needed a space where somebody would listen and help that had nothing to do with my life. And then I was in it first for a few years of business when I was remembering, like, it just felt hard with stuff. But we're going to go on those personal growth journeys a lot more, or than the business will just, the business can do that, but the hardest part is us in that.
Absolutely. And it's so important that we do those. And I don't think I was completely aware of it when I was in my private sector corporate career. because I think I was just so in it and so doing it and was enjoying it, but I wasn't aware of everything I was learning from the personal point of view. And it has taken me to launch the business, to really kind of lean into that and see the difference, the personal growth, and also having that trust in myself and building that self-belief in myself and talking to myself in the way that I would speak to a client. And talking to myself in the way that I would speak to a peer, having a conversation with when they were talking about their challenges or what they wanted to do, and just be like, you know, your body keeps score. So how are you going to learn from this? And it doesn't mean it's like I want the highest highs and the lowest lows, because I know from both of them and all the bits in between is where I get the growth. So if I am feeling at a lowest low, whether it's my health, whether it's something in business, whether it's feeling failure, whatever it is, I'm like, right, I can feel it. I'll deal with it. How am I going to deal with it? And then I will move on. And then it's when you come out of that, you're like, I can do hard things. I can do these things. I can build that belief, and you can go again. And then the next time it comes around, which they always do, you're like, well, I did it last time, so this is now what I need to do. You said it really early on in this podcast, but having this toolbox.
Yeah.
You know, it's having this toolbox, having this arsenal of things that, you know, like, this is what I need to do when it comes to this time. You going for a run, preparing for the run, knowing you're doing this podcast, then you want to do that. So what you're going to have to eat. And it's all of those things. It's like, you know, it's so cliche, but it's looking after that future self. It's looking after that person, you know, and sometimes it's simple as me as knowing that I'm going to put the slow cooker on so that we can have a great day and dinner is ready. I don't get to 4 o'clock and go, oh my God, what am I going to feed everybody? And what am I going to do this? You know, it's all of those things that we need to do. My partner's doing the London Marathon this year, and he's got a half, I know, really, like, he's not a runner.
That is
So
so
he's totally huge. So he's got a half marathon tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Leeds, and we have to like leave really early. So like today is all about us prepping for that and getting them organized. Like I've already been up, like we need to make sure you've got the right kit and your trainers are ready, and you know, but it's all of those things that will make tomorrow easier and simpler and enjoyable for us all. So it's not even just about your business, it's just all about those things of kind of looking after ourselves.
100%.
Okay, so as you know, I ask everybody 3 questions to prepare before they come. And it's just a little insight into things. And also I like the fact that people tell us about their inspirations and things like that. So the first one is the favourite thing that has shaped your life, business or work, the joy spotlight.
The joy spotlight is, I'm going to be honest, I can't remember what I put, but that's important. I just sit with what I'm going to say anyway.
Go sit with what you're going to say.
The joy spot of me was making and actually it's important based on the conversation we've had today because it's relevant. Just making that decision to say no to the life I didn't want anymore and go for it, and start to go on this whole journey of then redefining success, happiness, and like there we have to, and measuring those things like joy, you have to do that part. And again, like do it on your own if it feels a bit weird, and write it down, but really spend the time and lean into, like we said, we're sitting here saying that we're not woo, but there's, if you take that completely out of context, that there is some woo there, or whatever you want to be. It's not even the label of woo. Just go on that. And if you want your crystal, have your crystal. And if you want something else, do that. But that's definitely been the joy thing for me.
Yeah. It's so interesting when people like us who are quite logical, strategical people, and when we talk about not being woo and then we realise we actually are, it's following your gut, having that gut instinct, believe in yourself. Because when you think about a gut instinct, for me it is a feeling in my body, you know, is that kind of right down there. So it's like that in itself is woo. You know, that's not. So do you think that is the difference between the people who, it's almost like you feel the fear and do it anyway because your body's telling you that you can do you think that is a difference between the people who will and the people who won't?
I think you have to be open to, like, we're going to get things wrong, and that's okay as well. And people say trust the gut and it'll work. Sometimes you're going to trust something and it doesn't. I remember I've employed people before, and then they've said, like, who employed this person? Oh my God, it was me.
Yeah. I'll fix it. I will fix it.
So, you know, you're gonna mess up on stuff, but I do think the ability to, I think a lot comes down to believing in yourself and just going for it, but being open to the failure part. But that invitation to learn will make you stronger next time as well. I think having more curiosity in life and courage.
Yeah. Courage is the big one for me. People always say to me that I'm so confident, and I'm like, I'm actually not that confident a person. I'm really not. Really introverted, not very good in like put me on something like this when I'm talking about my business and I'm doing my thing. It's
Yeah.
that why that kind of drives it forward. Put me in a room with people I don't know, and
Really?
it's something I really, 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 really work on quite hard. And I can stand up and talk in front of people because I had to do it in my job, and I can do it to do with my job, but put me in another environment and I just freeze. So, but courage for me, and people say to me, where does that courage come from? And I'm just like, again, it's just a strong why. I think because I have worked in business and I have had success and earning the money that I wanted to earn, but not necessarily having the life that I wanted to have. It's like, I know what it takes. So I can either choose to do it or I can choose not to.
I think like you've just shared there, the word that comes to mind is awareness. That's where a lot of things start. And you've got to have that, like, again, if you're wanting to understand this more for yourself, like go and raise your awareness on things or work with people that help you do that, because
Yeah.
that can really change the game. And then you can make decisions around things
Yeah.
based on that awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the second question is inspired by joy. So it's a book or mentor that kind of shaped your path and stays with you.
Two, always, I said a bit about my dad earlier. Another one is Disney. Like behind me, I've got a Disney poster. I love the book. Bob Iger, who is, well, he was kind of stepped down, but I don't know, CEO still of Disney. I read his book on leadership as well. Just the whole, like, people are so obsessed by it, right? And if you think of what do people buy, they don't buy the Disney rides, so that they go and buy the experience and the memories made and things like that. Disney vision, everything of what it brings has always just been an inspiration. He has this quote, Walt Disney had a quote around, do what you do so well that you others see what you do and they bring others to come and see what you do as well. And that was something I heard years and years ago when I started just to be a manager at 21. And it just was like, wow, holy crap, that's that's a bold statement. So I always share this on pretty much every masterclass or day I'll be like, this is the most important quote, because again, the essence of people, but just do what you do really well. And if you're not doing it well, go and get better at it, and then bring others to see that, and then they bring others, and it's that whole ripple effect of help one person, they help another person, and then you've rippled to 5 people in no time.
That's it. And it's like, so far in this podcast, and I think published, I think the next episode number is going to be like 28, something like that, I think, off the top of my head. But in that time, I mean, it's not a lot in terms of in the podcast world, but in that time, Disney has come up more than any other brand person, because Disney comes up in terms of story because he was told he wasn't creative, and and Disney comes up in terms of customer experience and selling, and like you say, like show it, do something really, really, really well, and that self-belief and staying on that path. And I loved it. I've loved Disney since a child, and I love the storytelling, and I love how they're adapting and stuff, because again, people will say, oh, but do you not think it's a bit archaic, some of the way they tell stories? And I'm like, yeah, but they're adapting too, and they're telling different stories now and from different perceptions. And let's face it, we all want a bit of a fairy tale. We all want a little bit in our lives in that, and we'd want a little bit of that magic. And I didn't go to Disney as a child, and I went to Disney last September. I went to Euro Disney with my wee ones, and I don't think I was even prepared for how magical it was going to be. And my mum came with us, and at the end of the day, she was like, I'm really sorry we didn't bring you here when you were young. She was just like, even her, she was like, I thought it was just like a theme park, or there'd be like a couple of bits, but they just do it so well. And like you said, they don't go for the rides, you go for the experience, and you are in the magical kingdom and you're swept up in it. And even I defy anybody to go to that and not feel a little bit of the magic.
One that's aligned to that is, if you haven't read the Nike story, Shoe Dog and things like that, very, very similar, like that resilience, the challenges,
yes,
and how inspirational they are in terms of, again, I'm always fascinated watching a fitness ad, because I'm like, there's no clothing in it. But it's not about the clothing ever. That's the irony. It's about, I'm like, what? And I always remember with the messaging stuff, I was saying to Tom at the cinema once, like, what was the message to you in that? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, what's the message that Adidas is saying there? And then he goes, oh, I don't know, like, dream big. And I was like, yeah, like the goals, the aspiration. So I'm in my little bubble of it, but I think it's fascinating. And that's the stuff that people want.
Exactly.
Like,
That's it.
They want that.
That is it. That is
They
absolutely
need the trainers.
it. Yeah, exactly. But you think you can conquer the world. The adverts tell you that if say you are starting out to go and do a marathon and you're not technically trained in that, you like, well, if I get them, I believe that I can, because they're selling the belief. They're not selling, as you say, the actual shoe. You probably see the shoe for two seconds, and then it moves on. So the last question is the joy killer, the thing that you would like to see removed from the world.
Based on what we said around today, I would love people to remove any fears they've got. That's really broad, but any fears we talk now. I think judgment and rejection, that any fears I've got around just their belief and things as well, like wrap that into it. Just go for it. Get yourself around. The key to that is getting yourself around the right people. And we have to be careful. Like, I'm in a bubble now. Like, I was in a corporate bubble. I'm now in a bubble where it's like I'm around great people. But you do then shut off to how far you've come and what you've achieved. And actually, many people are quite draining at times, without being rude. You know, I'm walking into corporate sometimes think, oh, there's that mood hoover, you know, or that person's just going to drain me. I'll walk this way.
Yeah.
Not being nasty, but it's just how it was. And I don't.
It's just how it is, and you have to, like you say, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Improve like how I am as a person, help me to make a difference in the world and help me to get close to where I want to, you know, like working, seeing great stuff right now, but where I want to be as well, and enjoying life in the moment because it's so short, you know, and that's really important. Just removing all the stuff, stop judging other people for stuff. There's a lot of judgment. I did a post on it yesterday and stuff and just go for what you want, stick in your own lane.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the two things that have stood out for me from what you said, and they've came to me right as you've been saying that as well, to get rid of fear, it's that curiosity and that awareness, that awareness of yourself, that when somebody is perhaps going through something or they put something on social media that you don't necessarily agree with, your reaction to it is your reaction. It's nothing to do with them. So having that self-awareness to be like, right, okay, well, I can either choose to stay in their world because I don't need to agree with everything that they say, or I can not follow them anymore. But I don't need to be part of it. I don't need to become, and if I think there's a conversation to be had, I can have the conversation. There's lots of space for discourse around and discussions around things, but also then that curiosity to then think, well, why do they think like that? And what is that bringing up for me? And what is that? And I think when you have that curiosity and that awareness, you can combat your fears, because you can almost be like, well, why am I scared of that? What is it that I'm feeling? It is, like I said, it's that gut instinct, that feel the fear and do it anyway, as cliche as that is or has become. But the reason they become cliches is because they're true, and they're repeated because they're true. And it's that thing of, right, well, I am going to be scared, and I am scared of being judged, and but they're going to judge me anyway, whatever I do. So why don't I just try? Why don't I just go and see? Because ultimately I won't know, and then they can judge me when I'm being successful rather than when I'm sitting at home wondering if and how and why and maybe.
Wrap it up. I just end with this piece for me is around, again, my mentor Giovanni said about a while ago, like, when you're scared to do something or you're not sure, like, or you're saying like there's not enough money to invest. This was his example at the time, but you know, like, what would, almost like the alter ego, what would someone else do, and give that person a name. So ironically, and he knows it, it's quite funny. He was like, what's yours? And I was like, Giovanna. And he was like, it was very hilarious. And I was like, no, but like Giovanna would get on that plane, would go to Canada. And I did. Like, he offered us all in a room once an opportunity to go to Canada to his event that he runs for free, like the first ticket as such. And then I chose to upgrade everything, and I'm going back this September as well. He was like, his story was like, I saw where my mentors were, where people were, and I was like, what would the other person do? I'm scared. What would they do? They'd get on that plane, they'd be there, they'd invest and do that thing. Now, obviously, we have to be realistic to that as well. We can't just jet set all the time. But I do focus a lot on that, like, what would Giovanna do now in that scenario? If I'm not prepared to do it, what would that do for my future self in that way? It's just it's a reframe, it's a different way of seeing things. But if we took us out of it, actually what you probably unpack there is there's just loads of fears and what if it doesn't happen, and all those things where that other person would just go, sod it, let's go for it. You're only here.
There's an opportunity. I'm taking it. I'm ready to take opportunity when it knocks.
So important.
Yeah. So if people want to come and find you, work with you, nosy at you, find out everything that you're doing, where could they come and find you?
Best place is Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook. Just come and join me there. I always say the simplest thing is just reach out and say, hey, heard you on this podcast, because it's so important, because it helps you, it helps me. We know we're making an impact. We can get in a great conversation instantly, so you're not having all that fluffy cold stuff out the way. And we can just say, like, what did you find of interest, where you're at, and just talk things through. And it's never about, it's just getting to know more people and getting more conversations. I'm always...
That's it. It's relationships. That's it. You just never know. You never know from one conversation where it could go. And ultimately, we all just want people talking about us in rooms that we're not in.
Yeah. Spread the
and
word.
that comes from relationships.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I don't let anybody go without answering one final question. And the final question, what joy legacy do you want to leave behind?
Joy legacy I want to leave behind is to, like I said, the Disney quote is to like make an impact so that others then do the same. They have that ripple effect of doing what they do really well, being known for that. And that's ironic with messaging, but getting their message out to the world, not holding themselves back and creating a life they want. Like not what's dictated by social norms or what we think, or even our mum and dad that want to protect us and everything.
Yeah.
Everybody around us, just like digging deep and saying, what do I really want?
Yeah.
And what's meaning, success, joy, everything to me. That's what you've really got to dig deep on.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. And after having this conversation with you and watching you on social media for quite a while now, I can absolutely say you definitely walk the walk. So if anybody wants to see more of that, absolutely. If anybody wants to see more of that, you know where to find Natalie. All Natalie's links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being so generous today, Natalie. I've loved every bit of this conversation. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Natalie as much as I did. As I said at the start, I've watched Natalie from afar for some time, but what a joy it was to find out more about her journey, her career, starting her business. And there is so much from the conversation with Natalie that I have been thinking a lot about since. Firstly, that success isn't a title. It's what you decide it is. Leaving corporate life so often means redefining what truly matters. And I know it did for me. But when I spoke to Natalie, so much of it came bubbling back to the surface of the person I thought I was, the person I thought I had to be, both in the private sector world and when I started my business, when actually the best versions of that person are both really, really important to me. Whereas I tried to run away from both versions of them at some point. So it's all about redefining what truly, truly matters, how deep your why is and why you show up for the business you are in right now is so important. Secondly, that fear is inevitable. We all feel it. Even the people who we think are the most confident people in the world will have that element of fear, but curiosity is stronger. And when Natalie said the word curiosity to me, it was like it came up in lights. And I think curiosity is so important because if we stay curious, we are always learning. And it is so important that we are always learning about ourselves, our businesses, our customers and clients, our families, our children, our friends. It's so important that we keep that element of growth in our life, that we keep learning, that we keep questioning and we keep pushing. And all of that will have the best impact on our lives as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as human beings. And the word curiosity is going to stay with me for a long time. And lastly, the one thing that comes up with everybody I have spoken to so far and is something that is really important in my business is community is everything. Surrounding yourself with the right people makes all of the difference in your journey, and also making sure that you are part of creating those communities if that is what is aligned to you. And when you are creating those communities, that you know why you're doing it and why it really matters. Natalie's story is proof that taking the leap is possible, that you can, even when you are in a successful career, even when you are riding high, if there is something more or something different that you want to do, the leap is possible, and so is thriving on the other side. If this episode resonated with you at all, share it with a friend who needs that little nudge. Perhaps there is somebody in your life who just needs to hear Natalie's story today. And I would love you to come and like, review, subscribe to the podcast. It costs you nothing, but it means that we can reach more people every episode, every week, to keep spreading the joy. And if you're ready to start thinking bigger about your own business and strategy, you can check out the Joy Work Members Club. The wait list is open now. The link is in the show notes. You can find out a little bit more and join for the next time their doors are open. But until next time, keep taking bold action, make the leap, and keep doing the joy work.